All right, part 2 of our previews coming up here for the Locked On Big 12 podcast. Joining me once again, it is my colleague and my friend, Robbie Triano of SiriusXM. Robbie, it's good to see you. Of course, right as we record, the yard workers have begun to blow weeds outside.
They want to know these takes. They want to know what we have to say about these teams. So welcome in. I love being on the show.
Yeah, we love having you. We love having the yard workers on the porch. We love the dog getting up because he's excited to see the yard workers. So this could be a chaotic show. We've got 5 teams to do. We just did part 1 of this yesterday. We don't have hosts for the teams talking about today, which does not make them unimportant. But Robbie, I brought in you are my help to get through this. So let's start with the first team we're doing today, but the 6th team in the preseason poll. And that is West Virginia. And I thought West Virginia is they're the one team out of this secondary group that can make that push for being the 3rd best team. You and I already talked about it. And maybe potentially upsetting the apple cart in the right situation against an Oklahoma or an Iowa State. What do you think the biggest storyline is for the Mountaineers heading into this year?
Biggest storyline for me with them is, can we see Jared Tagey make the improvements to be the next quarterback or one of the more improving quarterbacks in the Big 12 this year? I feel like we've kind of seen bits and pieces of him, but after he got benched after the Liberty Bowl in their win against Army for Austin Kendall, there are some question marks about Jared Tagey, and I feel like now this is the time for us to see them. And man, one of the other questions I have for them, they have a tough non-conference open at Maryland, then another game which I think is an easy win, and then they play Virginia Tech. That is a really tough go to start their season, and I feel like that can really determine their success in the Big 12. But Neil Brown, season 3, I think we are a pro Neil Brown show here on Locked On Big 12. We love Neil Brown. That defense has been the biggest thing that they can hang their hat on, but they lose a lot of good players. They obviously lost Tyke Smith to Georgia. So this is a year for them where they should be improving, but when it comes to the defense, they lost a lot of key holes for them. And I'm interested to see where this team goes. I feel like this is a boom or bust team. This is a team we could see make the top 4. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a team that is in the 7-8 range in the Big 12.
Yeah, I think their schedule too is something that lends itself to that happening. And I think too often we use, you could use wins and losses almost as a negative, right? But if this team were to go 7-5, I'm not sure you could argue it was a bad season, right? Because you think about what they lost on defense and the fact they've got Maryland, Virginia Tech, Oklahoma. Let's see, I'm just going to the TCU, Iowa State, Oklahoma State. Texas, they have to play a lot of difficult games. They're going to be underdogs in, maybe that Maryland game will be pretty close, but Oklahoma definitely for sure. Texas potentially, Oklahoma State potentially, Iowa State potentially, TCU potentially. So this is a team that's going to be around that 500 mark. And they were last year. It's just the question is, can they win those swing games, right? That Texas Tech game last year, they're a different ball club if they win that game. The Texas game last year, different ball club if they swing those results.
So funny you talk about the schedule there. So they are at Baylor on the 9th of October, and after that they have their bye. This is their stretch after their bye. At TCU, home against Iowa State, home against Oklahoma State, at Kansas State, home at Texas, and then they end with Kansas. But that is a very, very, very difficult stretch of games. And I know having Iowa State and Oklahoma State at home is clutch. But, those are really tough teams. So when it comes to winning those swing games that you're trying to say, like the toss-up flip of a coin, I mean, this is a tough road for them. And for something about their team, I think I love Letty Brown in their backfield. I think he has the capabilities to be a top 3 running back in this league. I think he has that type of ability. I don't know much about their like actual pass catchers, though. That's the thing that troubles me about West Virginia. I feel like they have dynamite pieces in Letty Brown, and they have some dynamite pieces on their defense, but some other holes I'm not really sure of about this team.
So that kind of brings, and I'm with you on the wide receivers, right? It doesn't really feel like there is a David Sills. There isn't really a Gary Jennings, right? Those guys that we used to think about as being their elite pass catchers, next level pass catchers. I think about them moving forward. Like, what is my prediction for them this year? And I feel like it's going to be around that 500 mark. But once again, like this team, Jared Dagey could get better. They could get better wide receivers. Their defense could play up to a certain standard. And I think there's still a chance that I think a successful season for them is 8-4. I think if they go 8-4 with the schedule that they have, that would be a huge win, I think, for this West Virginia program.
So that's a good point that you say there about like what exactly do we want to see out of this team? And I feel like if you're a West Virginia fan, you're not going to win the Big 12 conference this year. Just accept that right now. You are not going to win this conference this year. What you want to do is be able to enter that tier of teams that could. Like I feel like TCU is a team this year that could go to the Big 12 championship. I feel like once you enter that top 4 type of tier, that's where you want to be to see, okay, I actually believe in Neil Brown. And they're making the improvements. First year, 5 wins. Last year, 6. Like you're seeing improvement, but this is the year it's like, okay, do we actually are we actually going to like be true players in this conference? And this is the type of year to do it. And I think they have a really, really, really tough road to make that possible. So
I think
I'm
7-5
more
is
skeptical.
not where I am. I'm kind of 7-5. It's kind of the range I am, which once again, I don't think it's necessarily that bad. I don't know if that's that bad with the schedule.
Yeah, I feel like there's such a log jam, especially in the teams we're discussing today. It is an absolute log jam to find out which one is which. I feel like really you could just throw it like a dart at a dartboard and it has each team's logo, and then you can find out what order it is. It is very difficult to get out of this pack.
Yes, and the next team that's trying to get out of this pack is Kansas State, and it's really funny to think that think about where Kansas State was last year. And they were picked to finish 7th in the conference. Think about where they last year after they beat Oklahoma, right? Like everybody's opinion of Chris Kleiman is, wow, this guy has come in and twice gotten OU. And then at the end of the year, obviously they lose Skylar Thompson, but things went south for them. They lost a lot of guys to transfer portal. And so while I think he still got time, and I like Chris Kleiman as a coach because I think what he had to do at North Dakota State with the way you develop talent is very much akin to what he has to do at Kansas State, right? With the way you develop talent there, because you're not getting blue chip guys. You have to make do with the Deuce Vaughns of the world. So I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up on him, but I think opinions have changed. I think that to me, obviously, besides Skylar Thompson coming back, that's the big storyline coming to this year is kind of the opinion of Chris Kleiman.
Yeah, I agree with that. And to go off Skylar Thompson, I feel like in the entire league, the entire Big 12, if one player were to go down and how much it would affect their entire team, Skylar Thompson for me is like that person because we saw that happen last year when he went down. You mean they were on this roll besides losing the season opener. They were on this absolute roll. Like they beat Oklahoma and Skylar Thompson is proving to be their guy. And then Will Howard has to come in as a true freshman that completely derailed their entire season. So for me, I feel like Skylar Thompson is the most valuable player to a single team in the Big 12. And for good reason. I think he is a good quarterback. He is not a top 2 quarterback in this league, but really their entire season depends on him. And good for him because, I mean, he has the leadership. He has the experience playing in this league. He can take this team as far as they go. And they open with Stanford. And that's a tough game. But their non-conference besides that isn't bad. They play Southern Illinois and then Nevada, and then they open the year at Oklahoma State. This is another team. I believe in Chris Kleiman. I believe in that culture in Kansas State. I believe in what exactly they're doing there. But this is another team just like Neil Brown, these third-year head coaches. Like in that group of 4, RIP Les Miles. Sorry, you had to go and be a scumbag. But, this is this group of coaches that I'm trying to see, all right, which one is really going to punch through? And Neil Brown and Chris Kleiman are the two I think are, in lockstep or the most competing for that one to break through.
I think it's going to be Neil Brown. I'm leaning towards it being West Virginia more so just because the Kansas State defense too. I mean, they, Wyatt Hubert last year, and there's nobody on that defense that really scares you. And that's kind of how I feel about it. But look, I think Skylar Thompson's super underrated. I put him pretty highly in my rankings. They got a pretty decent returning core on offense. So I kind of like that group. The defense is my big question, but if they can get that Stanford game out of the way and they can get a win against Stanford, I really like the way that their season could potentially go. And I think that's something to watch because that feels like a huge game. I mean, talk about other big storyline, like they need to get the season off on the right foot against Stanford because Southern Illinois, Nevada at home. I know Carson Strong's good, but You're not really too afraid there because then you play Oklahoma State on the road and then OU at home. And I know the OU, this is a completely different OU outfit. It's a spicy game, but a totally different OU outfit. And they've got some demons. And then a bye week, then Iowa State. So they're another one of those teams that gets their just tough run pretty much consecutively. I think my prediction for them when it's all said and done is 5-7, 6-6. I think they kind of end up even Steven, as Kramer says in Seinfeld.
Yeah, this is a toss-up with them too, but oh my God, if they beat Oklahoma again, what does Chris Kleiman know? What spies does he have? What is his pregame speech to say about this? It would be remarkable if 3 straight years, like Lincoln Riley must go to bed and wake up and just think of Chris Kleiman, just like looking at him in that shake after the game, be like, hey, good game, Lincoln. And he just has fear in his eyes, like, oh my God, I can't beat this man. But this is a team as well. Like if I were to pick, Let's do this now. If you were to pick the games that they were to win, who would you say is like a lock or a game that you think is winnable for Kansas State? Because I think most of them comes in the non-con, and then the Big 12, there's only a handful of teams that I can pick that they can confidently beat.
They can go 3-0. I think they end up going 2-1, but they're not beating Oklahoma State in the road. They're not beating Oklahoma. They're not beating Iowa State. That could be the one that trips them up. So I'll give them like a 10% chance there. I don't like their chances on the road in Lubbock. So I think the ones I'll give them are Baylor at home. I'll give it to them. Kansas, I'll give it to them. SIU, I'll give it to them. Nevada, I'll give it to them. So there's 4. So they have to flip 6 of those. They have to flip basically 2 more of the remaining 6. And I think they could trip up. They could trip up an Iowa State. I think Iowa State, the expectations as the season rolls on too, could get harder and harder and harder. Maybe K-State plays spoiler for Iowa State this time around as opposed to Oklahoma. And then they're going to need to flip one of the kind of middle tier, right? The Texas Techs, the TCUs, those teams. They're going to have to flip one of those 2 to get to 6-6.
Yeah, this is a team I feel like if they're facing a good offense, this is not going to be tough, and obviously we play in the Big 12, so good luck on that. But the thing that I'm looking for this team more than anything, the reason, like, if we were to put like a power ranking of teams you just want to watch because of certain players, I want to watch this team just for Deuce Vaughn. I feel like he's an absolutely electric player. The way he can do in the receiving, the way he can run, the way he's so slithering, the fact that he's just this like short little like muscle hamster. He is unbelievable to watch. I think he is a top 5 player just in terms of entertainment value. Deuce Vaughn is like unbelievable. And the fact that he is now competing, like we are now considering the 3rd best running back behind Bijan Robinson and Breece Hall. Like we didn't knew none of him last year. And now that he like just entering his sophomore year, he's going to be this. It is an incredible story in the Big 12. And that is worth watching Kansas State.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think Skylar Thompson too is going to rely on him pretty heavily. I think for sure. All right, let's keep rolling on down the line. So the next one is Baylor. Shockingly, Baylor got picked ahead of Texas Tech, which I don't agree with at all. So this Baylor group, things go totally south for them last year. I think the storyline of the offseason for them is the introspection. I've mentioned this a lot, but the introspection of Dave Aranda, right? He is the coach. You get Lincoln Riley's of the world, and then there are Dave Arandas who it's not like he's intentionally letting us in, but it's almost like it's a thought bubble for himself, and he's doesn't really mind if you step into it, right? And you hear what he has to say about himself and the way he evaluates, his team. And I like the fact that he showed us such a window into how learning to become a coach is like, from being a coordinator. And sometimes bringing in, I keep forgetting the coordinator they had, who was a coach in North Carolina, the coordinator last year?
Larry Fedora,
right. So, you think that might end up working out, right? It didn't, and because they couldn't really work the offense to the personnel. It's hard when your offensive line is that bad. And then they bring in Jeff Grimes this year, and so we'll see if that change means anything. I think their defense is very good, but the big question to me is, does it look any different, Dave? And also, you had a pandemic year too, so this is kind of the real year one. That's the big storyline for me. What about you?
Yeah, I have to agree with that as well. I feel like. I mean, everyone brings it up when they talk about Dave Aranda and Baylor, but everyone first shows so much sympathy. like, oh, I'm really sorry about that first year, Dave Aranda. Like, he'd got absolutely screwed with what's happening. And I feel like that was a true learning moment. You talk about Larry Fedora. Watching that offense last year, oh my God. Like, they never utilized the running backs, and half the time the running backs were injured. And every play, they're relying on Charlie Brewer to make a play. Charlie Brewer is a good quarterback, but if you're asking him to pass 50 times, like, what are we doing here?
Right.
So I feel like this year with Jeff Grimes, that is my storyline for this year, is like the people that he has brought around, I feel like are the right people. And I feel like we are seeing an evolution of Dave Aranda. It's when he started out, he was such a quiet coordinator. Like, we've had him on the show and he talked about how, he wasn't used to talking to the media. He wasn't used to leading a team. He wasn't ready for that because he considers himself quite an introvert. I feel like over the course of this year, we're really seeing him actually evolve and become this leader at Baylor. And I feel like this is the true year, if you're a Baylor fan, to evaluate him and actually be critical. Last year, I don't think you had the opportunity to. But this is the first year for Dave Aranda. You can be like, okay, we had Matt Rule. We had a really awesome guy. Do we think we can continue that level of success with Dave? And this is the first time I feel like this year exactly, they can do that. And it's tough because I don't think they have a really solidified quarterback, even though it is Gary Bohannon, who's been in there for a couple of years.
Yeah, the quarterback thing is the next thing that we have to hit on, right? It's the fact that all of their quarterbacks look bad in spring, and then they move forward to the fall. And, and during summer, and Gary Bohannon ends up winning the job. And they just need consistency to me. That's what they need. They need something steady at that quarterback position. But for them to me, it really does feel like the offensive line is what matters. Did they get better up front? Because if they didn't, it really won't matter. Like, their offense is going to be bad, and their defense is going to be on the field just as much as it was last year. And to me, the quality of their defense was not the problem. The amount of time the defense was asked to play and make plays was the problem, the situations that they were in. So I definitely think that Gary Bohannon's got a lot of expectation on him. And look, he's a guy who's been around, but not a guy who's played a whole lot.
Right. No, I agree with them too. But the good thing about him is he's got weapons around him, which will really help. And I feel like that Jeff Grimes offense that obviously we're not going to compare Gary Bohannon to Zach Wilson. We're not going to compare him to the second pick of the draft. But what that offense can allow him to do, and the reason he's the starter is because he can bomb those deep balls. And they have, the weapons to do that. They have R.J. Sneed. They have Tristan Ebner out of the backfield. They have Tyquan Thornton. This is going to be a fun offense to watch. And the thing that I am most excited about this team is that defense, because they have I would consider a star player on each level. They have Terrell Bernard at the linebacker core, who is, one of the best linebackers in the entire country. They have Jalen Petrie, in playing defensive back. He is an unbelievable type of player. And the player I feel like we all need to watch, LSU D lineman, transferred over, Apu Ika. He is a massive, massive human being. We talked to Terrell Bernard. It'll be on Big 12 today. And we asked him about that. And he was very clear. My job is going to get a lot easier because this guy is a beast. And, he worked with Dave Aranda while he was at LSU. So there's a comfortability there. I'm very high in Baylor this year because of their defense. And I feel they have the weapons on offense to break through. I think they're going to be the 6-5 team in this conference. I'm very high on the Baylor Bears this year, and they have an easy start. Texas State, Texas Southern, Kansas. That's 3 games to basically warm up. That is an unbelievable 3-0 stretch. You obviously then go into Iowa State and at Oklahoma State, but that is a really, really, really nice ramp to get comfortable and build some confidence for this team.
Yeah, both on offense and defense, but more importantly, the offense, right? The offense needs to build that confidence, because I think this defense, like you talked about, is going to have a lot of it. They got to start all 3 levels. They're playing for a coach who's going to ask you to play fundamental football. We already saw some of it last year. And then that 4th game of the year, I'm not saying they're going to beat Iowa State. I don't think they will, but they'll be at home. And look, I think this all the time. I really do believe that there is something to, you build up international confidence. And that's good if you're a team like Baylor and you're playing Iowa State, because you're not better than them at really any phase of the game. You're not better than them. But maybe feeling yourself a little bit, that's at home. It's going to help you give some confidence in that game. And look, it's also a defense that turned over Brock Purdy pretty well in that first half.
Oh yeah.
If their offense could capitalize at all, they would that game would have been a lot closer and eventually in the end, and they could have given Iowa State a run. So yeah, I think if they can go 3-0 like they should and set up that matchup, that's what I'm excited about. So what do you think the Baylor Bears end up at?
So I have 4 confirmed wins. That is Texas State, Texas Southern, Kansas, and then BYU. And now I'm looking at the coin flip games. I'm looking at Texas Tech. I'm looking at Kansas State. I'm looking at West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And, if they play Texas at home, they play Iowa State at home, they play Oklahoma at home. They play their hardest games at home. So this is a team I feel like is really built for success. I don't know if I have a specific number, but I think David Aranda goes bowling this year. I feel like they get to that 6-win threshold, and I'm very confident in this team this year. I think they have the roadmap schedule-wise to do it. I think they have the coordinator they always wanted. I think they have the weapons, and defensively, I don't think they're going to get much better. So this is a team, barring injury, and if the best-case scenario happens, I feel like the upside for this team is great.
Yeah, I'm going to go 5-7, kind of like I think 5-7 to me. I'm worried about their offensive line. I'm worried about them holding up throughout the season. That's my concern. I do think they start out 3-0, but I think they lose some steam. And if they lose that, if they lose that Iowa State game, which I think they will, they then have to go to Oklahoma State, which I think is another loss. They come home for West Virginia, and that's a game they could flip and win. So they could do that. And look, there's a situation where they could be after their first, 7 games, they could be 4-3. That'd be a great spot for them to be in. But it's the back half of the schedule, the Texas, the TCU, Oklahoma, Kansas State, Texas Tech stretch that they have that I think is what does them in. Because, if they can get one of those 2 last back games, yeah, they end up going bowling. But I think it's going to be – I think it is going to be difficult. I think it's going to be difficult for them. All right, let's move on to team number 9. I think they're better than number 9. I'm not sure they make a bowl game. This team. So Texas Tech, who has Tyler Shuck coming in there, and the big story for them is it's do or die for Matt Wells. Does a bowl save Matt Wells' job? You think at Texas Tech?
I think it 100% saves it. I am on the team. If you're Texas Tech and you see growth within your team, you keep him around. I'm watching Ted Lasso. They just got relegated. No spoilers, but I just spoiled. So if you haven't watched Ted Lasso, I'm sorry. But he's in a situation where, I'm referring to Ted Lasso now. This is all I've been thinking about. I'm sorry. So he's at a point where he's they went backwards in terms of, their overall record. But in terms of, them as a team, their growth as a team, they keep him around because we see what you're doing. If I'm Texas Tech, you're not a program that's going to get the best players every year. Obviously, you're in Texas. You should be doing that. But this is a team, and Matt Wells, I feel like we are seeing growth from them. I like Matt Wells as a coach. I think if you ask anyone who covers the Big 12, they're going to say, yeah, Matt Wells, really nice guy. This is a year where I feel like they have the best opportunity to succeed. Tyler Shuck is a baller. He has Sir Roderick Thompson, who I think is a very underrated player in this conference. I would consider him a hidden gem. They have Eric Azukama as wide receiver, one of the best in the conference, and they have a really, really good linebacking core. This is a team that I hope goes to a bowl, because if we see Matt Wells fired, that's a shame for this conference because he's just a really, really, really great guy.
Yeah, I also think the conference realignment situation might help him because it's hard to attract candidates when you're not sure about the future of the conference, right? So I think Kirby Hocutt is keeping his fingers crossed that Matt Wells performs well this year. I think you're right. I think a bowl game definitely saves his job because of also those circumstances too, right? It's just with everything going on, they don't want to do a coaching search, so they'll be looking for a reason to keep him. But yeah, I think they've got a lot of experience at some of those positions that matter. I think the reason why, you and I are puzzled about those odds for Tyler Shuck being the number 1 pick, right? And I think everybody understands why. Mm-hmm. But you think about him as an athlete, big kid, strong kid, good arm, and the fact that he's going to be in an air raid offense. Well, we think it's going to be an air raid offense. I think you assume if Sonny Cumbie is going to coach your team on offense, you're going to hope you're going to assume it's an air raid offense. So I think his numbers are going to be great this year, and I think that's the kind of thing that projects pretty well for him in his NFL future. So I think if they can get on a nice little roll and have a good season, yeah, they can definitely reach a bowl game. Their schedule, they've got Houston opening game at NRG. I still think that Houston team's a little bit of a mess. Stephen F. Austin, then FIU to follow. They go to Texas, which if they can make that game wonky, they can win in the shootout. They should have won last year. They didn't. West Virginia and TCU, so in the Kansas. So really, they kind of have those middling teams coming in for a nice stretch, and then they end their season with Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and Baylor. So, it's kind of a mixed bag in terms of a schedule, a nice little stretch, and then some difficulty towards the latter back part of it. But, I think this team builds up some momentum. I think they catch somebody, so I was kind of down on Kansas State. I'm going to say Texas Tech might be the one that kind of rises up and makes that push to the middle of the conference, maybe.
I feel like during us talking about this, I have talked myself into putting Kansas State and West Virginia back, and I'm putting Baylor and Texas Tech forward. I don't know why. The big thing for this team, they need a very good offensive line. Yeah. I think that, but they do have a good ramp to the season, except Houston. I mean, I expect Texas Tech to win that game, but that's on ESPN at 7:00 on week 1. That's a big game for them. That's a huge game for them, and I think that determines their confidence for this season. And then that's a nice ramp. Hopefully they are 3-0, 2-1 heading into the season. But then they go at Texas, at West Virginia, and that's difficult. But I do like the games that they play at home, because you're talking about, can they steal one? They have TCU at home. They have Kansas State at home. They have Iowa State at home. They have Oklahoma State at home. I feel like if they just get 1 or 2 of those, this is a team that has a bowl win, because I see 4 guaranteed wins with their non-conference in Kansas. Sorry, Kansas. That's going to be a tough one talking about them next. But
Houston, they're gonna beat one of these teams as the guarantee. It's going to be somebody. But yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it was the other year with Texas Tech too, which is a damn shame. But this is a team I'm very high on. I think offensively they're going to be great. I'm skeptical for the Sonny Combi because I haven't been impressed by TCU's offenses the last couple of years. But I am excited for this Texas Tech team, and honestly, I'm straight up rooting for Matt Wells to win. I want him to win. I want him to be great. And this is, man, it's so tough to go in between these type of like middle of the road.
Right. Well, you never know who's going to shoot up. I mean, I feel strongly that they've got, because of their quarterback situation, the way their offense is going to look, I think that gives them the best chance. I know this conference is a bit more reliant on defense now, but I do think the fact that they're not rotating quarterbacks anymore, because they were in a bunch of games last year.
Oh, yeah.
Despite the fact that their quarterback room was kind of a mess.
Not only is Alan Bowman not great, but he was hurt half the time. So the fact that they've had to rely on that, and he's now the third-string quarterback at Michigan, who does not have a great quarterback room themselves, kind of speaks, a little bit.
Last team, and Lance Leipold in Kansas. So, look, if they can beat South Dakota, I'd be really pleased for them. I think they will beat South Dakota. This is the hardest job in Power 5, at least, because also he showed up in May. Which he missed all of spring ball. And he even joked after the press conference, the first practice, he's like, yeah, it was great to see my quarterbacks throw the ball because I have not seen them throw yet. Mm-hmm. And that's the challenge. But if anybody can actually do it, it's Lance Leipold. And this is a year zero. This is a year zero for him. So I think that's the storyline here. And I think, considering all things considered, the horrible things that happened at Kansas, and when it happened, they got a really good coach despite the really horrible circumstances in which they got him.
No, I agree. And I'm going to be honest, I don't really know any players in Kansas. I don't think I have anything to really,
Kendrick.
Miles Kendrick, yes. I
yeah.
Remember him. They don't have Carter Stanley anymore. No, I don't think he's in the NFL either. But this is a year, there's this great piece by Jesse Newell, who I know comes on this show often. And he was talking about what exactly Lance Leipold has implemented within that culture. And it's just like the little things. Like, we need to make sure you were eating the food you're supposed to eat and do the workouts you're supposed to do. And it's just like, when you work out, we don't want any time lost between this one set you're going to do and the next set you're going to do. And it seems like there's kind of this military approach to it. But I think that's what Kansas needs. They need the discipline. They need to be pushing away. They are set against all odds. They are at the bottom. People are saying, why don't they just run the triple option? I'm like, that's stupid. Why don't you just like build? You have this raw piece of clay. And now Lance Leipold is like, all right, let's mold it so it's actually right. I can't imagine what it would have been like in a Les Miles type of, locker room. I don't know what those trainings are like. I feel like he was a coach that let so many things slip like under the cracks. And Lance Leipold is a coach that I feel like will actually do things the right way. The things need to be done here. I put so much faith in here because I've seen it. It's not like he's a first-year coach who was like, I'm going to do this. Like, this is a coach who actually has the track to do this. Do I think they're going to win any Big 12 games this year? Honestly, no. I hope so, though. I want to bet the over, the 1.5 win total over.
I want to bet
I think that is – I want to bet because I know they're going to win their first game. Let's hope. Oh, my God. Let's hope they win that.
Dakota, yeah.
But this is a team that I want them to win a game. I want a show. I want fans in Lawrence to have to celebrate, their team actually doing something right. I want that fan base to feel something for once.
Yeah. I was talking when I talked to Jesse, ironically, we talked about the same stuff. And look, I know this happens in a lot of places, but the stuff like, the personalized shake for each person, right? Having a protein shake that's going to help each individual player, whether it's build whatever it is, lean muscle or lose burn fat, whatever it is, that's important. The jogging between reps is important. Our colleague Gabe Eichert has always said it's the most disorganized team he's ever seen in person, right? Les Miles, Kansas was. So now they're at this point where things are a lot better. It's not time to start building. And Jesse Knoll said this. He said if they can go from 1 win to 3 wins to 5 wins, he goes, they can build a statue. He's like, if they get 5 and 7 at some point in the next 10 years, like he's like, that is a great job. And I think somebody might counter and say, well, Mark Mangino's done it before, but the college football landscape has changed so much since then. And Kansas has fallen so far as an athletic department. I know their basketball is almost pushed off the side, but like the Jeff Long did some pretty bad damage there, like some really bad damage there. And, I think Travis Goff's a good guy to have there. I think he seems like a really smart, well-minded individual who's got the best interest for KU. He's another one of those new ADs who stepped into a really crappy situation. Luckily, he's got kind of basketball to fall back on, and really his main focus can be helping out this football program. But, yeah, I think this year 1 win is the expectation. I'm going to bet the over just so I can cheer for 2.
I want to do that too.
I went to Missouri. I'm supposed to hate Kansas.
No, you're right. Yeah.
It's supposed to, allegedly I'm supposed to hate Kansas. But I really I'm from Virginia. I wasn't there when Mizzou and KU played. I like Lance Leipold a lot as a coach. I think I think it's a really good hire. I'm rooting for him to work because I just, you hate to see a program suck this much because there are people out there, believe it or not, who care about Kansas football and they want them to be better. And so, yeah, I think it's the right guy for the job. And if he can't do it, Robbie, I really don't know who can.
Absolutely. And I feel like if you're Travis Goff, you're looking at this, I hope OU and Texas stay here for a while because if I want to go to the Big Ten, I need this football program to do something. So Lance Leipold, take your time. You have about 3 and 4 years. Let's hope they don't leave.
Yeah. All right. That will do it for us. Robbie, where can people find you? Is there anything else also you want to promote?
Big 12 today, SiriusXM channel 375 from 3 to 5 p.m. Central Time. We do a great show every day. Hope you guys can tune in as long as you're also listening to this as well. Locked on Big 12. Find me on Twitter at the Triano Kid. Josh, it's been a pleasure.
It always is, Robbie. We thank you